everyone, welcome. My name is Adam. Welcome to another P3D video, and today we're in version 6 and I want to talk about planes that are not native to version 6. Maybe you've installed a plane from P3D version 4 or 5 and then you've looked at it and gone, wait a minute, something's not right, it don't look the way it should. It's either too light or too dark, or the colors or the textures just don't look right. I want to show you a very easy way how you can change, more specifically, the flight deck to be a lot more what you want to see or what you're expecting to see, and to be either brighter or darker, or even change the color. And it's very easy, and it doesn't change the entire sim. But first, before I show you this, I want to talk a little bit about the differences between P3D version 4, 5, and 6, because version 6 is a very different beast to the previous versions. And if you take a plane from a previous version, you can install it into V6 because it is backwards compatible. That's not the problem. The problem is this version of P3D has had a major overhaul in terms of its lighting, its shadows, reflections, even the 3D graphics render engine has been overhauled. It uses Unreal Engine 5 for the atmospherics now. It doesn't use True Sky or the enhanced atmospherics. They've been removed and replaced with a variation of Unreal Engine 5. So there's a lot more features in the menu that take advantage of more current graphics cards. We're talking things like DLSS, we're talking things like FSR, the anti-aliasing has been given a makeover, and you can upscale within P3D now. So you can actually make things look more detailed, more better, and at a higher render rate. Basically, the entire, I would say, visual look of P3D has been given an overhaul. But in doing that, it does mean that the shaders have been completely changed, and a lot of the effects files have been altered from previous versions, making this sim now look visually great, but now exclusive on its kind of own. And if you want to put in a plane that's been made in version 4 or 5, it isn't going to look like it could look. Like the texturing might be more visually appealing. Like, you know, I can see scratches on this texture that I couldn't really see before. Reflections are completely different now in V6 because of how it renders it. V6 has twice the amount of colors of V5, and it also has a wider dynamic range in terms of its luminance, so it can actually show more. But if you're putting a plane in from version 4 or 5 with a much more limited color palette or a much less dynamic range of light, then certain values aren't shown and it's going to look wonky. It's going to look dark, colors are going to be off hue, you know, and you know, you're just going to go, you know. But like I said, we can change all this. Now, Lockheed Martin have actually done quite a good job of giving us a way to kind of fix it ourselves within the menu called tone mapping. So if I turn this off, you can see it's a lot darker at the underbelly here, a lot harsher light at the top, the sky is a lot bluer. If I turn it on, it kind of lifts the visual light a little bit, both in the shadows and in the midtones. One might say that they prefer the custom tone mapping off. I kind of do as well. I'm not saying that this is the fix, by the way, but combined with the brightness and adjustment and the saturation adjustment, these are blanket overall visual changers. Like the tone mapping, the brightness, and the color saturation will change everything in the sim, meaning that your overall sim can now be really affected to a harsh degree. So if I turn this off, you know, you might say this looks a bit dark now, but you know, one might say actually it looks more appropriate than it does with it turned on. One thing's for sure though, I mean, it's all personal preference at the end of the day, and what your monitor can display. Everyone's monitor will be different, you know, but one thing's for sure is never set the brightness value and the color during the day. Okay, this is the one mistake I feel everyone makes, is they hop into an airport. We're here in Bora Bora, which is in the Pacific Ocean, I believe in the southern hemisphere, and the color that comes off the sun, wherever it is very particular to this area or latitude on the planet. Sunlight that comes from the sun hitting the planet will enter the atmosphere at a different angle depending on the latitude you're in. So if you're in the UK versus, say, northern Africa versus southern South America, you're going to have a very different type of light coming in, and it's going to have a slightly different hue at sunset and, you know, sunrise. The way that the light is scattered across the atmosphere, it's angled differently, so it's got like weaker sort of ability, you know, at the poles, but direct hits on the equator. So if you're actually on the equator line or just off it, you know, you're actually probably going to see a lot harsher shadows, a lot deeper, blacker shadows. Whereas if you're at, you know, the sort of north and south pole ends, you're going to have diffused shadows because the sunlight is going through a lot more atmosphere. And obviously the Earth's at an axis tilt and all that. But what I'm trying to say is the sunlight, is not the same around the world. So if you try and set your brightness level, it's really only going to be specific to that airport you've loaded into, and you're going to load into another airport somewhere else at Japan or Australia and go, oh, hang on, things don't look right again, and you're back in the menu messing again. And it's like, yeah, that's going to be forever your life. You should always set brightness and color saturation at nighttime. Basically remove the sun. You know, we all know what the daytime, you know, looks like outside our window, and we all know what the nighttime looks like outside our window. But if the sun is hitting the earth at different values throughout the world, giving different colors of light, like, it's never going to be the same. Remove the sun and darkness, as it were, is always the same value. It's the absence of light, you've got nothing, basically. So I've changed the skylight up here. I've got a sort of a nice, lovely cosmic sky replacement in V6. I've kind of set my brightness level to be able to see this. Like, if I was to go in now, and if I turned off tone mapping, that sort of sky disappears a little bit, and you're like, well, yeah, where's all the stars gone? So this tone mapping is really done to see this, but at the same time I could lower it a little bit here if I felt it was too bright with the brightness. You know, I certainly do think the trees over here, if I put that back to 0, are too bright, because at the end of the day, they're on the other island. I really probably wouldn't see that color green, you know, across the way, like I do here. It would be a lot darker, but that is probably more the effect because of the trees themselves and not the light that is cast on it. I need to replace these trees, basically. If I zoom into these lights here, these little street lights, these have basically a correct, I would say, value of light for me. They look at the right brightness, you know. The plane does not. The plane looks like it is too bright, to be fair. So but I would heavily recommend always setting your brightness values and your color values at nighttime, because you know what the nighttime is going to look like. And in all honesty, you really wouldn't see, you know, unless there was lighting, you wouldn't see the landscape going off to the horizon at night. It would actually disappear into the darkness. So, I mean, if anything, my custom tone mapping should come off. And if I did that and then hopped back into my flight deck, everything is a lot darker, you know, as you can see. So how do we overcome this? Well, first off, it's very simple. You go to the airplane in question, and in the files, I've used the Carenado ATR 45 as an example here. there's a common folder that houses all of the flight deck and all of the textures shared across all the liveries. So changing this one will change them all. And there's two in particular here, the interior 1 and interior 2. These are specifically the flight deck, these two textures, and they cover all the textures within this flight deck. Now I use a program here called what's it called, Earthfan View, but you can use Photoshop just the same. Basically what you want to do is go in and color correct this texture. Now first off, what I tend to do is I first start with this color, and I move the saturation up until the red begins to bloom, and it's generally just before it does that is the sweet spot for me. So we're gonna say like 170 there. Then I change the gamma, and I generally find 1.5 is a sweet spot in V6. And then the contrast, if I feel it's too bright, I can just darken down, but I want to be careful because I do want to see the detail on the dash between these dials, so only going down to a certain level. Now I did find that across all the Coronado ones the same values were good. So once you basically change how you want the texture to change, in my case I apply it to the original, which I won't do because I've already done it somewhere else, and I'll import those textures and then save that file. Now you can't save it, these are DDS files, you can't save it as a DDS, you have to save it as a PNG and then use bitmap converter to put it back into as a DDS, which is exactly what I've done here. So these are the two files that I've changed, and basically increase the color and up the brightness a little bit. I'm going to restart my sim and I'll bring you back in like the new flight deck of what it looks like in a second. Okay, so I've applied the fix now. I'm a lot happier with what I see here. The flight deck is a lot more blue to the Airbus color that I kind of expect the ATR to be in, rather than the gray look it had before. I can actually see the texture here now on this panel, whereas before it was just rather dark. Same with this panel down here, it was rather dark. Don't forget as well, is if you're using auto exposure, when you look down as opposed to looking out, the exposure value will change. But yeah, this is more in line now with what I sort of would expect to see. And if we flick on the power in order to put on the lighting in here, the panels, the gauges look a lot brighter. Even flicking on the dome lights, well, it does nothing during the day actually. But if I turn it to nighttime, when it would make a change, obviously it's a little bit darker in here now, but putting this on actually brings up, and you can see how grimy this thing is. This thing needs a clean. But yeah, now it's bringing up the light in here quite nicely, and obviously if I turn it off, it's still lit with the other light instruments. Anyway, it just looks a lot better basically. And the same, well, it doesn't actually make any effect for the outside. It's just a flight deck change. The rest of the sim stays the same. That's the whole point of what I'm saying, is that if you change the sliders or introduce values into your CFG, it's a blanket change. You're overexposing the sim, and it's going to make every add-on you install. One thing I recommend is make sure you calibrate your monitor to Windows in the color calibration section. That's the first port call. Then any changes to the brightness that you're going to make sure it's done at nighttime, so that way you can accurately set the exposure level of your sim without making it too bright. For me, I do actually think my sim is a little bit too bright at night. I don't think it would be this bright, but this is default. I actually haven't installed any add-ons at all. So a lot of trees, a lot of things will get replaced when I introduce, like say, Orbex Global or Orbex Vector, and the lighting will have a reflection on that if any lights are introduced. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you find it of help, usefulness rather, sorry. And don't forget, I give away 50 euros of FLIGHTSIM vouchers every single month for SimMarket. To be in with the chance, all you have to do is subscribe to this channel and put comments down below in any one of my P3D videos. And at the end of every single month, I go live with a vlog to announce the giveaway winner, and I send you the voucher codes for 50 euros that you can go spend on FLIGHTSIM add-ons. Thank you so much for watching this, guys. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Also, sorry, if you have any questions, please ask me in the comments down below and I'll get back to you. Bye.